I hope everyone's morning sessions were awesome and that you're finding some inspiration from joining the conference today. I know I definitely am. Just a quick introduction from first, this is the intervention with Jamboards. So if that's the session you meant to be in, awesome. My name is Erin Oliver, and I work as a math specialist at a small school, Grand Isle School. We're a K-6 school, and I help do some facilitating for all learners. I love being a part of All Learners Network. I feel like it constantly inspires me to better my practice, and I truly love the vision of all means all, and feel like it's achievable, and want it to be achievable for as many schools and as many students and as many education systems as possible. This session came out of, I spent the beginning of the year, when we were in our hybrid model, I spent the beginning of the year doing intervention running intervention groups with students, either one-on-one or small groups with students when they were at home, because it was how we decided we would try to kind of combat the equity issue of struggling learners having often less access to good resources when they're at home. And so we were trying to kind of build in their intervention time, not taking it out of their school day because there were so few days that they were in school, and really trying to build it into the days that they were at home. And I just kind of started to love on Jamboards a lot. And so I started playing around with that as the main tool that I was using during those sessions. And they're so, I find working on Jamboards with students to be like a really like playful experience. They, like, students kind of feel like they're playing, even if the work you're doing isn't really a game, or I have some that are games, but not all of them are, and it still feels playful. So I just started really loving it. And then with the uncertainty of how the year was going to go, even as we brought students back, I kept playing around on Jamboards even in class. One, it kind of skirts the guidelines around sharing manipulatives and just having to worry about sanitizing stuff. And it continued to feel like a way to bring students together when the distancing requirements really feel like we're staying apart from each other. So I just have I've really been loving the journey of trying to leverage this tool, and find, just with everything, the more I play around with it, the more I get better at it, the more ideas I have. And so hopefully this is either a launch to your own journey in Jamboard, or helps further the journey that you're already on. I really do think it's a pretty cool tool. So hopefully everyone has access to that presentation. I will share my screen quickly. And I spend a lot more time in Google Meets, so I sometimes feel kind of slow in Jamboard. So just bear with me. Or not Jamboard, Zoom. All right, so hopefully you've seen these today. These are our all learners agreements. Just take a minute to kind of take them in. Give me a head nod or thumbs up. That feels good to you. All right. I'm assuming everyone feels okay with the professional agreements. Is there anything that someone would like to add to our agreements for our time together today? As a way for me to just kind of get an idea of where you're at, if you could drop in the chat your own comfort level with the tool Jamboards. It's a part of the Google Suite, and Just a 1 to 10 into the chat. Like, how do you feel about Jamboards? Awesome. We have a huge spectrum. Cool. Well, I'm still on my journey and I am growing and learning every day. And literally every time I create one, I think, oh, this is such a good template. Like, this is going to be awesome. And then I use it with students and I'm like, oh, here's all the ways I want to change this template. So I will try to highlight just some of my own like evolution in getting better and better as well. So, you know, just with everything, there's a starting point and then you grow from there. So if you feel uncomfortable in or overwhelmed by what I'm showing you, don't worry about that. Just know that it's a cool, fun tool to play around with. And I'm now using it still with students that I work with remotely, but I'm also using it in the classroom. So I will run a small group where all the students and myself are all on the same Jamboard. I have a couple groups where half of the group is in school and half of the group is at home, and we're all on the same Jamboard. And so there's a lot of I just think there's a lot of potential with this tool. So we're actually going to try one out. So I dropped the link right into the chat, and I'll also put it into that presentation. So go ahead and join that Jamboard. I will need 4 brave volunteers to try out this task. So this is an awesome teamwork task that I found from Sarah Vanderworth. Her website's really cool if you have never visited it. She does this on a piece of paper on the 3rd day of class always, as a way to kind of teach students about what it means to be a strong math team together. So I put it into a Jamboard as a way to have a dual purpose to one, teach students about what it means to be a strong team working together, and 2, to get them to play around with some of the Jamboard features. So you can see on frame 1 is the directions for the task. So 4 of you, brave souls, are going to have 2 minutes to highlight the numbers 1 to 100 in order, one at a time. So you're each going to choose a different highlighter color. And when I say go, you're going to kind of go in order and cross off first the 1, then the 2, then the 3, then the 4, etc. Hoping to get to 100 and see how far you can get to. So if at the top, there's like a little arrow where you can click onto the next frame. So Katie already has chosen her highlighter color and wrote her name to say that she's going to be on the team. I need 3 more volunteers. Awesome. Sarah's going to take it on. 2 more people. And Katie and Sarah, you're on pen right now, which is totally fine. The highlighter, you can see Keith's writing with the highlighter. If right next to your pen tool, there's a teeny arrow, and if you click on it, you can change from highlighter to or pen to highlighter to paintbrush. The highlighter just has like a little thicker mark if you want to switch to that. So if you want to watch this team take it on, you need to be on frame 2. I'm going to give you guys a 2-minute timer, so I'll tell you go. And they're going to just try their best to get as many numbers in a row as they can. And I would suggest you just go in the order that your names are. So Katie, then Sarah, then Keith, then Amanda, Katie, then Sarah, then Keith, then Amanda. And just in all math teams and all math work, pay attention to patterns that you see that might make your problem solving and your teamwork stronger. We're not going to do another attempt, but with students, I have them at the end of this talk to each other about, and we'll do this as a team too, talk to each other about, okay, what did we notice? What's going to make it stronger for us? What strategies might we want to try on our next attempt that's going to make us better and stronger? Any questions? All right, Katie, you're going to start. Your timer starts now.
Can someone else help with 2 if you can find it? Because I can't.
Yeah, so 2 is in the.
I got it.
And you're welcome to talk to each other as you go.
I can't find 5. Oh my God.
Oh, it's on the left. There you go. Anyone see 6? Thank you.
Hey, you're halfway through your time. You guys are doing great on your first try.
Help. I can't see it.
To the left of the 6.
18. Thank you.
And that's your time. So we'll count that 20 and we'll say that you guys hit 20 on as your teamwork task. So you can pop it into the comments, or you can unmute yourself. What are some things that you're noticing that might make your team stronger next time? Anyone seeing any patterns?
When you had the groups of 4, number 1's info was all in the upper left, number 2 was all in the upper right, and then 3 was in the bottom right, and 4 was in the bottom left.
Yes, that's one of the patterns that you're hoping students are going to see, and they eventually do. You see it the fastest if you have a team of 4. If you have a team of more than 4 or 3, it takes a lot longer. It takes a lot longer for the students to see the pattern, but that's one of the things that you're hoping they'll see and talk about and develop a strategy around. I will reshare, just for anyone who joined late, I will reshare our presentation link. It has a lot of links to Jamboards. So I'm going to share with you guys in slide 5 of the presentation, there's a link to a Jamboard that shows students actually taking this on. And you can click on it, but I'll also share my screen so you can see it. So this is one of the things that I've been just noticing about this school year is kind of the lack of joy and engagement, particularly in older students, partly because of the social distancing, partly because of masks, partly because I think everyone's mental health is like a little on the low end of the spectrum. So I've just been doing this as a teamwork task for the first 5 minutes of class. So they get an attempt every day. It takes about 5 minutes. They talk about what strategies they've tried and have worked and what they want to get better at. So this is the first few attempts of a 5th grade team. And so you guys actually bested them in your first attempt. They got 12. So awesome. Good job, guys. But then they quickly noticed the quadrants that you guys saw as well. And so then one of their strategies was to draw in quadrant lines and kind of claim a box, which quickly upped them to 23. And then they started to talk about Jamboards have a delay. So the delay is actually a fun pattern to kind of figure out with kids as well. So, when you first start playing with Jamboards, you have to give them some chance to play around with the tools. that are on the side. And there's really interesting patterns with the delay and the tools. So like if I have a text box open on my Jamboard, but I haven't clicked out of it, then it won't show up on your screen, right? Or if the laser is the most fun tool and the most distracting tool, and if I'm doing the laser as I'm clicking, it won't, my lasering that I'm doing won't show up until I unclick. When I unclick, then all the lasering that I was doing shows up. So we do like a laser light show to kind of like see that effect. And so students were starting to kind of say, okay, well, there's a delay on Jamboard and that's slowing us down. So they started to play around with strategies that would take away that delay. So students started to like pre-mark a number and then just unclick when they saw the mark of someone else's. That got them to 42. Teams stayed silent for a really long time, not talking to each other except when they couldn't find a number. And then they started to talk about, well, what if you say you're marking your number when you're marking it, which was a revolutionary strategy that got them to 53. So and all the time I'm using this is like just a 5-minute routine at the beginning of class that's constantly teaching them about finding patterns, implementing strategies, talking as a team, using problem solving to make your team stronger, and growth mindset. Almost every time they take this on, they get better at it. And I'm literally telling them, I am not doing this to make you better at math, because obviously you all know how to count to 100. This is about how do you become a better math team together. So that's just like a quick intro to a starting journey into Jamboards. That it's a great way to play around with the tool and to kind of infuse some joy and problem solving and teamwork into your classrooms.
Erin, you said you wouldn't, it's not necessarily a math activity per se, but I look at it and say this is a great way to do some of the skip counting that you would do with a younger class.
Yeah, and actually we've talked about that as a strategy. So one student was like, well, I'm just adding 4 to my number every time. And as a way, and then another student was like, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. It's actually, I think it's amazing. That Sarah Vanderwerth says she does it religiously on the 3rd day of class with her students. And she takes her original post is about doing it on paper, right? And you see all the kids like hunched together with paper, and that's clearly not what we can do right now. But she takes pictures of that and puts them up as, this is what a strong math team working together, talking and problem solving looks like, which is another cool back pocket use when we're out of the pandemic tool as well. Like I agree with you, Keith, there's so much awesome about this. And the joy that it brings is amazing. The competition is like out of control. I have 3 groups now that are into the 60s and they're within a number away from each other. Like one group's at 63, one group's at 62, and one group's at 61. And they are fiercely striving for a strategy that will best the other teams. It's like beautiful to watch. Other questions or comments? Awesome. I had this awesome video. So I'm looking at slide 6 right now of the Google slide presentation. I had this awesome video to show you guys, but unfortunately, I just never got the permission from mom. Like I think she just never got around to it. So I'm not going to share the video of the student, but I will share the Jamboard and the conversation that the student and I had around this Jamboard. It won't be quite as powerful. So you can click on slide 6. There's a link to this Jamboard. It's a hundreds chart, a thousands chart practice that I set up for a couple students that were really struggling with number sequence at the beginning of the year. And I'll kind of walk through, I'll share my screen the board, but you're welcome to join the board. And I'll walk through the conversation that we had that you would have seen in the video. So this student had already completed frame 1 with me, working on numbers in 100, and I purposefully didn't put all the boxes, right? She wasn't trying to fill in the whole chart. She was just problem solving using patterns in the chart and what she knew about number sequences. And then the colored boxes are ones that I call them challenge boxes. So once she'd done all the numbers, I would say, can you put the yellow box at 40 more than 124? And she'd have to figure out where that was. Or can you put the red box where 99 or where 95 would be? And you can see I also put some numbers that are outside of this actual box itself to see if she could extend the pattern of this chart up or down, even though the lines for those weren't there. So she'd worked through this first one, and the ones where we extended beyond the chart, so 205, 99, those were super, super challenging. We really had to work through them. So then we went to frame 2 on another session together, and we're working through it, and she was doing a really good job. You could tell that she was starting to see patterns inside of the columns. And this is a student that super struggles with place value understanding, and that's one of the ideas that we were kind of playing around and working with. But she was starting to see, like, she'd say like, this is the 5s column, and there's always a 5s in the 1s place, but like she was starting to kind of use that to help her. And so halfway through, she got to 300 and she started to place it, and she realized she had no idea where it went. So she put it aside. She said, I'll come back to that at the end. Totally fine. And so she places all the other ones, and she comes back to 300, and she says, it goes right here. And she places there, and I say, what makes you place that number right there? Because on these Jamboards, my goal as a facilitator of their learning opportunity is inquiry. And that's my goal always in intervention. But so my goal is that I'm constantly asking questions. I'm not showing my own thinking. That's my goal. It's way harder to do, I think, all the time, particularly when you're working with students in intervention. But it's my way to help them make personal meaning out of what we're working out of, because that's where they're going to grow the most. If they have a moment of insight that doesn't come from trying to represent my own thinking, it comes from me asking a question and them having an aha moment. So I say, why did you place the 300 there? I think I might have even said, why did you place that number there? She knows it's the number 300. And she said, she gets out her laser, because the laser is the best tool. It is literally like, you have to kind of place a like moratorium on lasers at multiple points in a lesson because it's such a fun tool and distracting. And she said she counted down 3, 1, 2, 3, and she knew it would be at the end here, right? So really she's thinking about 30. And I say, okay, great. Let's double check and count. So we look at 223 and we use our laser to count the boxes. And we realize that this box would be 230. So that's not where 300 goes. And she goes, oh, okay. So she gets off her laser and she moves it to right there. She goes, it definitely goes right there. And I say, what makes you think that 300 goes right there? And she's, well, she gets her laser back up and she says, well, there's a 3 here. So there's gotta be a 3 here. And she's still not recognizing that the 3s she's looking for are in the tens place, and the 3 that she's referencing and the number she's trying to place is in the hundreds place. And she doesn't recognize that because her place value understanding is super weak. Like, that's why we're working together. So we do some counting again, 235, 236, and we're using the laser because it's mad fun. And we realized that 240 would come right here. So she goes, okay, I've got it. I know where it goes. So she takes her 300 and she goes, it goes right here. It goes off the board. And I said, why do you think 300 goes off this board? And it could go off the board because on the frame before I had a bunch of numbers that did go off the board, right? And she gets out her tool, her pen tool, and she says, well, 99 would go right here. And actually, she didn't write in 99 there. That's my bad. She had already placed 299 correctly right here. So let me undo that. She had already placed 299 right here. And she said 99 goes right here. So 100 goes right here. So then 300 would be down here somewhere. And I said, is this the number? Well, oh, I messed that up again. She didn't talk about 299 yet. She just said 100 goes right here. She wrote in 100. She said 300 would have to come down. And I said, what number comes right before 100? Because sometimes in intervention, when you're trying to have an insight through inquiry, you have to ask smaller and smaller questions, right? So I've been asking over and over again, why do you think 300 goes there? And as I ask that, she's having insight that, oh, it doesn't actually go there. It must go here. Oh, it doesn't actually go there. It must go here. Now I'm asking a smaller question. If you think 100 goes right there, what number comes right before 100? And she goes, 99 comes right before 100. And so then we looked at 299 and we recognized that it's not 99, right? And in that moment, she realized that that's where the 300 goes. And it was a beautiful insight that literally took 8 minutes of questioning. So I just share that as I think Jamboards are a really awesome tool to help drive your inquiry with students, to help bring that insight to life for students. And it was super true with this student. Questions or comments?
So Erin, you created this, or was this from someone else?
This one I created, but I create a lot of them by taking screenshots of tools that I find online. So like Neatlings, you can see down there, that's I took a screenshot of their hundreds chart. It's meant to be like a worksheet. And then I just created a bunch of text boxes that for the students to move and play around with.
Okay, that's what I wanted to see. So it's really an object with floating text objects.
Yeah, a lot of what I do is add an image. So there's the tools on the side. So I'll add an image, and the image is often something I've screenshotted. A picture of a virtual manipulative, a picture of a worksheet that I'm actually going to turn into something that we move around, and then text boxes and these shapes. The boxes that are filled in with color are inputting shapes into it and adding color.
Right.
And you'll see more examples of these in the other templates as well.
And Erin, you don't actually have to go to insert picture. You can just take a screenshot copy and then you can paste it into the
Brilliant.
It's a lot quicker.
I'm telling you, I'm constantly learning on this journey. Okay, so I'm gonna undo the work I did. Another really great thing to know is you can, up here in the corner is this undo button, and you can undo any of your own work or writing. So I ask students to, a lot of times we return to the same Jamboard over and over again. And before students close out of it, I ask them to reset their workspace. So just undo, 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 all your writing and movement goes away and it's set up for the next day. If I forget, if we don't do that, then we have to spend like 5 minutes erasing writing, because once you log out of the Jamboard, you lose that undo feature. And so then any writing that you have to like actually physically erase.
Is there a quick way to make a copy of this so each student would then have their own copy?
Yeah, you absolutely can. And there's reasons to do that and reasons not to do that. So a lot of times, and you'll see in some of my other templates, I make a page for each kid and put their name at the top. And so then they just go to their frame and work in their frame. What's awesome about that is then we're still all in the same document, and we can say, okay, go to frame 5 and look at how Taylor did this, or go to frame 2 and see how these two strategies are super similar. When students are in their totally own Jamboard, it's a lot harder to see each other's work. But you can assign someone their own Jamboard and then see that student's progress across the Jamboard, which I'll show you a couple versions of that as well. So I think there's reasons to do it both ways. One thing I've noticed about Jamboard is you can't make a copy of the document when you're in the document. You have to be like in the Google list of documents, and then you can make a copy of it.
I got it. Okay.
You also can duplicate a single page. There's a feature where you can do that up in the little toward the box at the top, if that's what you're asking about.
Yes. Oh my God, that changed my life, Sarah. Like I had put so much effort into putting these fraction bar manipulatives into one of my Jamboard templates. And I was like, I can't believe I have to like add this image over and over again. And then I discovered the duplicating frames and I was like, hallelujah. So now I just want to talk about some ways that you can use Jamboard. So, and I'm on slide 7, but I'll share the Jamboards that I show you. One is as a whiteboard for number talks. And you can do it 2 ways. I'm going to show you where a student has their own, and each frame is kind of like an evolution of their talk journey. You can also do it where on your first frame is the number talk, and each student has their own frame to show their strategy. So this one I think is just so great. You just see how much she grew. So this is a student's number talk Jamboard, and it was the start of the year, and this is a 4th grade student, and which just highlights to me how much regression is real this year in terms of skills and strategies with the remote learning in the spring and the weird ways in which we started school this year. So she was one of those students that in my original number sense screener, she said like 400 minus 198 was 300 because you can't take the 98 away from zeros, right? Like she was in that like weird thinking about subtraction. So we started with this number talk, and you can just see how her strategies were super inefficient, like removal of tens. You would expect a 4th grade student to be well beyond that. And this is a student, and you'll find both. The pen tool can be really frustrating for students. It's hard to use the mouse as your pen, and I use it as a growth mindset lesson, but this was a remote session. I gave her the option of doing her work on her own paper and then narrating it to me, and I would represent it for her. So this is actually my writing, but her thinking. And you can see it is hard to write with the pen. My writing's not great. So then very quickly, she remembered from 3rd grade that add up number line was her subtraction strategy. So very quickly we went from not remembering that you can take 98 away from having no tens and ones, right, to this like removal of tens, all 7 tens at once, not seeing that you can chunk it out, to remembering that she had this add up number line strategy. And we spend a couple of rounds of really efficient jumps of this add up number line strategy. So I start to make the problems more complex. And what I love is that I literally can see her progress and she can see her progress, because each day we're just doing a new frame, a new number talk, and she has this kind of record of all the hard work and her own growth. Then we get to probably closer to where she should be, and she's really getting there. And what I love about this is simultaneous to her classroom teacher reviewing place value strategies, starting to gauge readiness for the standard algorithm. So you start to see this like evolution of her thinking, not only from the intervention sessions, but also from her classroom teacher, which is like a wonderful ideal that doesn't happen all the time. This was a day we paused to do some classwork that she was super confused on. And then all of a sudden, she was describing to me the standard algorithm with place value understanding. And it was coming from class. I wasn't covering the standard algorithm with her at all, but it was assigned to me of like, awesome, let's move on from subtraction number talks. Like you went from this, right, to this in the course of like 5 weeks. And that was like just so awesome. And the reason I have a record of it is because we kept coming back to this same number talk Jamboard. And so we could actually flip through the frames and see her progress and talk about how her strategies had changed and developed across time, which I thought was really cool. And then we talked about how do you check a subtraction answer. So that's what this part is. I also used Jamboards to help students in a number talk see connections across strategies. So I'll show you that one really quickly. Any questions or comments? I do think Jamboard works on an iPad. I had a parent do that. It's helpful to have the app on the iPad itself. Sorry,
Erin, do you have knowledge of any reasonably priced, reasonably efficient piece of hardware that would help with that handwritten input on the Jamboard?
The one first grade student who got super efficient with Jamboards, and I've been having success with Jamboards like second grade and up, at K1 has been like a slow start, but the first grade student, he had he had a touch screen with a stylus that made it so he was like a superstar. I don't know that that's cost efficient, but that is what I've seen get around that.
Okay.
I'm actually going to go into, you can check out the second Jamboard, that's a whiteboard for number talks, is literally asking a student to try out multiple strategies for the same problem and then color code those strategies to see how they're all connected to each other. And this was directly connecting to his classwork, but it's just another way to use it. I'm actually going to go into the second use of Jamboards and using it as a launch routine. So I'm going to show you a sixth grade math talk. And the evolution of the Jamboard as you do it as a routine. So this first one, so I showed them frame one, and I said, we're going to represent 3/8 as many ways as we can. And they came up with all these different ways that you might be able to represent 3/8. So this was like a team brainstorm. And then they all had their own page, and they went to represent 3/8. So this was literally the first try. So you're going to see a lot of misunderstandings as well as accurate stuff. So this student did some stuff. She's mixing her classwork of ratios into her understanding of fractions, which is super normal at a 6th grade level when you're still not truly understanding fractions. And you can see that in her representations here and here. Another student, all he did was equivalent fractions over and over and over and over again. Even though we'd done that huge brainstorm about all different ways that you could do it, that was clearly like the only way he was comfortable. This student had a really fascinating misunderstanding of equivalent fractions, just adding 1 to the numerator and denominator. So it was like, whoa, we got a ton of work, but that's why we were doing this group in the first place. Again, equivalent fractions and fraction bars were like the most common. This was another like horrifying misunderstanding that I had to like really watch my teacher face on. He was in the process of turning all of his equivalent fractions into decimals where the decimal was in place of the fraction bar. So it was an awesome exercise that helped me really see that how deep some of the misunderstandings were that were causing issues in class. And this was the first round of this idea. So it literally, I saved 7 minutes of the class time to do this, like a couple minutes to do the brainstorm, and 4 or 5 minutes on their frame, and then a few minutes to share. And I said, we'd do this again. And it's a routine that we come to once a week. So then I've got one more to share that just shows the evolution. Like as you do a routine over and over, that drip process of more and more understanding happening. Can you now see that it says represent 3/4? Okay, just want to make sure my screen's doing the right thing. So this is it, like, I think only 2 rounds later from what I just showed you, like 3/8, this is our 3rd attempt at this. And already you're starting to see so many more variations. And also, again, like Jamboards are so playful, you start to see a lot of personalization inside of each person's frame. And I honestly, I think the older you get, the more you see this. So this is a 6th grade group. They're putting a lot of personalization into their frame because they care about showing each other who they are as much as they care about showing each other what they're capable of doing. So this is the student that was like really confusing ratios and fractions. You're seeing it like a little bit less here, and much more representations. Saw decimal come into place. This was the student that only did equivalent fractions the first round, right? Like, and they're getting stronger at Jamboard. Like they're seeing how they can search for images. That's how we got this awesome pie image and the domino image. This person is all about personalization. And she actually is really striving for some social acceptance. So the opportunity for socialization in her own frame is really important. We talked about how cool these 2 images were and how connected. It shows the 3/4 and 6/8. She threw a percent in. We didn't have percents at all the first round. This person's still building, but again, like this person had the misunderstanding of equivalent fractions before. So now she's not adding 1 to the numerator and denominator anymore. That's a huge win. We see some decomposition that's showing more understanding. So the more you build a Jamboard that can be a routine, the more you see that drip effect of more and more understanding as more and more connections to multiple representations happen. This person made an awesome connection to money and some decimal equations that were really cool and awesome to see. So like, again, 2 rounds later, this is our 3rd attempt of this routine. Already you see so much growth housed within this. Another way to use Jamboards is just to guide the work and practice of a focused intervention group. So I have one remote first grade group right now that the goal is about increasing, they all scored 0 to 2 on the PNOA of the forward and backward counting sequence. So really, they are not understanding counting sequences really beyond, most of them it was beyond 20, they really weren't getting. So this group is all about counting. I call them the counting crew. And I built out a Jamboard that I use every single time. And I built levels into the Jamboard. So these counting captains choose a starting place for us to do counting from each time. So we have like 5 minutes where we're just orally counting, so that the forward counting captain chooses, let's start at 43 and stop at 57. And we do that counting. Then the backwards counting captain says, let's start at 34 and stop at 24. And we do that routine. Then the tens captain decides which 10 group we start from. Then the backwards 10 captain decides which 10 group we go backwards from. And the Jamboards just drive this routine every single time. Then we have a hidden number game. You can change the order of your images. So right now this number line is orders at the back, but I can bring it forward, and then oops. I can bring it to the front, and then all the dots are hidden. But so level 1 has 0 to 20 and 20 to 40. Level 2 has 40 to 60 and 60 to 80. And as we got good at one level, right? As we got really strong at level 1, I'd tell them, okay, y'all, we're on the hidden number game, but we're on level 2 now. And that's a really cool thing. And the hidden number game, I would remove one circle, and then I would color in some of the other circles. So Kiara, you might be in charge of figuring out what those blue circles are. Maybe TJ is in charge of figuring out what the green circles are. And I can target where their circles are based on how far I've seen their progress. Then there's level 3 of the hidden number game. These are cards that I had in class that I turned into a puzzle on the board to strengthen their understanding of 1 to 20. And a couple levels in here. You can see when I copied this, we just finished level 2 of this puzzle. Then these are just sticky notes with numbers written on them. And so I can change I change the numbers each time. And they'll start off with all the numbers off, except for a few or one. So it might start when we're playing this level of the frame, it might start with just 49 right here. And maybe one of you is just in charge of figuring out what goes on the red boxes. One of you is just in charge of the blue. Someone else is in charge of the yellow. And then the series of numbers that I put out for them changes every round that we do it. So I'm meeting with the group every day, but we're coming to this Jamboard and I'm just slightly altering it each time. So it's just a routine that gets at that targets their growth based on what I'm seeing. Then a hundreds chart where I cover, we're working on filling it all in. So we're like getting close. And each kid has a color, and I'll drop their color into one of the empty boxes. And they say what number would go there. And when they get it right, we write it in to record our progress. And again, one of the things I like about Jamboards is that you can create them in a way that shows students progress and growth. And in intervention, inquiry, asking questions is super important, but making them aware of their progress and growth is also just as important, because as obvious as it is to us as professionals that they're growing, it is not obvious to students that they're growing. And you really want them to be able to see that they are growing so that they will put that effort and work in. So that's an example of a Jamboard I made to drive a focused intervention group. And then if you ever need to delete or duplicate slides, you actually do this drop down where it says the slides. You like drop down, and this is where you can delete a slide or duplicate one. If you duplicate it and it already has a bunch of images or stuff that you've put on it, then it will keep all those images. That was like the revolutionary discovery that I was talking about. And if you accidentally did more slides than you meant to, you can just delete it. I use this Jamboard to guide a lesson in practice every day. So as another tool, like this is a group I have 45 minutes with. So it's really much more of like a main lesson kind of approach. So, and Jamboards that have a lot of images on them, and this one does, take a lot longer to load. So every day, this is another 6th grade group where we're working on building up some fraction knowledge. So every day I go to this website Fraction Talks and pull one of these images and put it in, and I use the right tool to say, okay, tell me what fraction of the whole shape is that? Or tell me what fraction of the whole shape is this piece? And one of the cool routines that we've come up with is you can pull out a sticky note as one of your tools. So I pull up a sticky note and I write my answer on the sticky note. I think that's 1/18. And your sticky note won't show up on the board until you click save. So I tell students that they're not allowed to click save until I've gotten a thumbs up from everyone that they've had enough think time and they have an answer on their sticky note. So it's like this way to give every student that the time that they need to think about the problem and get their own answer in their head before they start to see the answers of other students. It's a really great feature. Then when you click save, all these sticky notes show up onto the Jamboard at a time, and you kind of get this moment of like, who agrees with me, who doesn't agree with me, and we share from there. So that's like a really cool thing to know. And students have been really respectful of it, not sharing their sticky note ahead of time. And you can change the color of your sticky notes. My favorite sticky notes for playing around with number lines is the transparent one. When you save a transparent sticky note, it just comes up as the number, and it's really easy to move around. So every day we do this warm up. Every day I have a number line with a bunch of stickies up that they have to place as a team down onto the number line. And then we ask questions about placements of sticky notes that they disagree with. And they can't say why they disagree with the sticky. They have to say what a question is. So like, so 7/8 and 98% was opposite originally when they made this, and we had a question. So often the students are just, the question that they come up with is, why did you place that sticky where you put it? And we listen to the students thinking. And that student had thought that 7/8 was 1/8 away from 1, and 98% was 2% away from a whole or 100%. 2% was further away than 1/8 was. So then we had this whole discussion about how far is 1/8 in, like, how can you, like, can you make that statement? And it was a really interesting discussion. And then we have a problem of the day. A lot of times it's computation based, but it isn't always. And students have to put an estimate into the box before they start working. Then they go to their frame and build. They can build using the tools that I've put on each of their frames, or they can use equations and text boxes to show their thinking, but they have to show their thinking. And then once they've got a solution, they come back to the problem of the day frame and drop in their solution. and this Jamboard drives our, like, the main lesson of the day, pretty like launch and main lesson every day, and what the content is constantly changing inside of it. Finally, Jamboards are an awesome way for some formative assessment or checking for understanding. So this is a 5th grade group, call them the decimal domination group. And we're working on building up place value understanding of decimals. So there's a separate Jamboard that we've been working on to just show decimals in all sorts of representations, on a number line, in coins, in place value blocks. And this was just a quick, I want to know how they're feeling. So in this one, I let them write their own decimals, because that helps me see where their level of comfort is as well. But they had to go to their own frame and just show the decimal that they chose in a bunch of different ways. And it kind of gives me an idea of the other Jamboard that we've been working on, where we're showing all these different multiple representations. How comfortable are they? And this student was like really eye-opening to me. She chose 1.00. I told them their decimal had to reach to the 100th place. And all her equations are whole number equations. Like, her comfort level is really not there yet. And this was like a moment where I got to really see that. And so I know I have a lot more work to do with her. Okay, so we're at 120. On slide 9, there are tons more resources that you can explore. So the first one is a site that someone shared with me, the Kentucky Center for Mathematics, and they put out a bunch of virtual math instruction resources. Half of them are Jamboards, about half, I don't know, that might not be true, but some are Jamboards and some are Google Slides. They're really cool. I've actually tried a couple with students. I haven't tried all of them, but they, at the very least, it was an inspiration for me of how I could build some more Jamboards. And then in the second one, this is a folder of all the Jamboards that I've made or borrowed and actually tried out with students. So I shared them with you as view only, and once you make a copy of it for yourself, you'll be able to actually be in it and move stuff around. But I just did view only so that everyone could have a unmarred copy, if that makes sense. So you're welcome to start exploring that, and we're just kind of at the place that if you have ideas or questions, in our original poll, some of you were at 1, you'd never used Jamboards before, and some of you were at 7 or 8. So if you have other ideas for how to use them, or if you have questions, this is kind of the time for that. Or spend the time looking at those resources.
Erin, I have a question for you. So
Yeah.
I am an interventionist myself, and we've kind of taken the route of helping students with their classroom grade level work as opposed to doing intervention during this remote time. And so some of me is like helping out in regular class, some of me is taking small groups. And so what I've kind of found is that Jamboard is really great for small groups, but I think I prefer Pear Deck for larger groups because it's an easier way to see really quickly like what everybody is answering as opposed to having to go through like 20 slides.
Yeah, so I think I agree with you, except for the manipulation and multiple representations, I feel like is easier to do in Jamboard. So yeah. I think whole group, the teachers that I play around with this stuff in whole class settings, we do a mixture of Pear Deck and Jamboard for that reason, because Pear Deck, you can, like you said, you can see really easily everyone's stuff, and you can share strategy, like you can select and sequence strategies the same way that you would in in-person class, right? Like, and really easily. But I haven't found great ways in Pear Deck to to reproduce that manipulative feel. I only have that in Jamboard right now.
Yeah, I feel like Pear Deck, the only good strategy is the draw. I feel like
The draw, the which one doesn't belong template is awesome because you see that where everyone's draggable went. I love that one too. But yeah, the draw is like, to me, a really great formative assessment check whole class. But if you really have students who need to be at the concrete part of building their understanding,
Yeah.
I think Jamboards is still the way to go.
And do you, like, if you're using like place value blocks or something, like, would you just take a screenshot and make a bunch of copies, like in a,
yeah. And it's time consuming, but then it's there and worth it.
And Erin, there was somebody in the chat earlier that asked where you find Jamboard, so I wasn't sure if you wanted to show that real quick.
Oh yeah, thanks.
At the very beginning.
So it's a part of your Google Suite. It doesn't show up. Let me share my screen to show what that looks like. So if you're in your Drive and you say new, and typically these are the ones that show up first: Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Forms. If you go more, Jamboard is just one of the tools that is built into the Google Suite. And I was not doing a good job of monitoring the chat, so if there were other questions that I missed, please share them. Oh, I like that idea for images. A specific folder for images that I frequently put into Jamboards, which makes them super easy to find. That's a great suggestion. Any other thoughts or ideas of how to use Jamboard? I think the process I think, to me, starting to try out Jamboards, so like the Kentucky Math, the Kentucky Math Center that put out all those virtual math resources, that was kind of my starting place of what I realized Jamboard could be used for. And then I started to say, okay, like, I see how they made this game using these, like using this image and these circles. So now I can make this game, that's a game I use in my classroom all the time, and do it this way. And so looking at other people's templates was like the start of, for me, how to start creating Jamboards that I really wanted. And then trying them out with students and seeing how it went was how I started to force myself to get better and better at what I put in the templates themselves. So I would suggest just trying one, and you can start with one of my templates. That's why I shared a whole folder of templates, or start with one of the ones from the Kentucky Math Center, and then go from there. A lot of what you did in class when we didn't have pandemic restrictions can be reproduced in Jamboards. That's what I really think. Spinner, dice, random numbers. I don't have a good solution for that. The one solution I've seen from another template is a bunch of layers of spinner or dice images. So as you, so like the first, like, so you cover up the first, it's no image at first, and you remove that and it's an image of 2 dice, right? And that's your roll. And then you remove that image and under it is a different 2 pictures of 2 dice. And remove the like process of removing those images is the roll. That's the only way I've seen it so far. The folder for my own template is on the Google Slides. So the Google Slide presentation that I shared on slide 9, there's 2 links. There's the link to the Kentucky Center for Mathematics. They have a ton of really cool templates, kind of opens up your mind to what's possible. And then there's a link to a Google Drive folder that has all the templates I've made. So slide 9 of that Google presentation. That's one of the downfalls of Jamboard is you can't put in live links.
Okay.
So you can put in a link, like I've put in a link that then I'll copy and open up in a different tab. So the link's just there, so I don't have to go search it. But I haven't discovered a way where you can have a live link, which is why I do a lot of screenshots of virtual images, of virtual manipulatives, and dump them into Jamboard. Thank you all for coming. I really appreciate it. Feel free to share Jamboards that you've made or ask me any questions. I love staying in touch and collaborating with people, even if you're not at my school. I think it takes a village to get to the all means all and pushing each other. So Keith says Jamboards also includes a mini browser that lets you enter a URL or search term to browse in a web page. Tap the scissor icon, then select the portion of the web page that you want to add to your board. So that is kind of a way to get around the screenshotting images.
And I have no experience with that. I just found those directions on the internet. So
that's awesome.
Give it a shot. I hope it works. I'm going to give it a shot for sure.
Yeah. I hope you guys enjoy your last session. It was awesome having you. Bye, y'all.